So Aljamain Sterling has called out Brian Ortega and Arnold Allen after losing to Movsar Evloev. The Russian names always meld together for me. It's really hard to keep them all in my head. But yeah, Movsar Evloev, Aljamain lost to him in a controversial decision. I thought Aljamain won. That's just me, but I'm not unhappy with the decision. The judges make a decision. That's what it is. The fight's the fight. That's the fight game. But Aljamain moves forward. He still refers to his performance as a win. Don't know why, but still, he did have excellent feats of strength in that fight. Skill, like I said, I think he won it, but in the end, he lost it, and you got to move on from that. But yeah, Aljamain called out Brian Ortega and Arnold Allen after this loss. I'm going to stick with Brian Ortega for this video. Brian Ortega is a UFC legend. I don't think you really have to have the belt in certain cases to become a UFC legend. I think Brian Ortega has earned that right just because of the blockbuster fights he's been a part of, especially the very noteworthy moment of his fight against Alexander Volkanovski for the featherweight belt, in which he almost had Volk submitted, but Volk somehow literally pedaled his legs through that submission attempt and beat Brian Ortega later in the fight. But Brian Ortega has had some really crazy moments, one of which is beating Yair Rodriguez in a fight that still kind of haunts me to this day. See, I'm a big Yair Rodriguez fan. I looked forward to a really awesome, cool build-up of Yair Rodriguez versus Ilia Topuria for the featherweight belt. I still feel like Yair Rodriguez is Ilia Topuria's kryptonite. It's just too bad that Yair has a long way to go before he can even get close to title contention, especially after losing to Brian Ortega in the manner that he did, because Yair Rodriguez was piecing up Brian Ortega, especially with his kicks. There was even a point in their fight where Yair landed a couple really clean shots and had Brian wobbled. But I think the round ended before Yair could truly finish it, so Brian survived. And then later in the fight, Brian Ortega was able to get a hold of Yair, and that's where the fight ended. Ortega got a hold of him, brought Yair Rodriguez down to the ground, and submitted him, all in quick succession. It just goes to show how little Yair Rodriguez knows about grappling and how little strength he has in the realm of grappling. And that's why it's just safe to say that Yair Rodriguez can't fucking grapple for shit. And it worries me to this day because, I follow Yair Rodriguez on Instagram, and all I see from him is just kicking pads, kicking pads, kicking pads. I'm kicking pads in Thailand. I'm kicking pads in fucking Korea. I'm kicking pads in Mexico. I'm kicking punching pads. I'm kicking punching in pads. And I'm not doing a single fucking bit of wrestling or grappling at all. Yair Rodriguez should have been shipped himself to fucking Dagestan months ago. And it pains me to still see that motherfucker kicking and punching pads like his striking is going to somehow overcome grappling. It makes zero sense, and it's frustrating to watch. Back to Brian Ortega, though. Yes, props to Brian for beating Yair in that fight. And then Brian got a chance at Diego Lopez, and that fight came to fruition, it came to materialize, and he fought Diego Lopez. And, Brian Ortega does not have great striking, but he appeared to have it against Diego Lopez. He did nearly get finished early in that fight, though, but he was somehow able to recover, and he showed some pretty good boxing against Diego Lopez. Yes, Diego was one step ahead of Brian Ortega, pretty much a good percentage of that fight. I wouldn't say always. I did still feel like there was a case for Brian Ortega winning that fight, but still, Brian Ortega showed improvement against Diego Lopez. I felt like his striking was there. And Aljamain Sterling has called him out. And I think, given the version of Brian Ortega that we saw when he fought Diego Lopez, I'm not going to say that Aljamain has, like, a clear win on the feet if he was able to bring the fight on the feet, because, if he was able to keep the fight on the feet, because Brian Ortega's striking has improved. And I think it's improved to a good enough level to compete with Aljamain on the feet. Aljamain, I wouldn't consider striking. I wouldn't consider his striking to be very good, but given how awkward he is with his striking, he does have, like, that awkwardness gives him a good chance of landing a lot of stuff on his opponent. And he does definitely have, there is the possibility of him, piecing up Brian Ortega. But like I said, I'm going to also refer strongly to the latest version of Brian Ortega we saw, and that version had improved striking. So I think this fight is going to be competitive. I really do. If it goes to the ground, both of these guys are ground game specialists, so I would consider it to be, or I would predict that it is very highly competitive on the ground. So I think where this fight truly changes, or where this fight truly begins, is on the feet. I mean, it obviously will begin on the feet because all MMA fights do begin on the feet. But I think the winner, the winner will be decided on the feet. Like I said, Aljamain's striking is awkward, but Brian Ortega's striking has improved. But if I had to give you guys a prediction of a winner, I'm going to sway towards Aljamain. I'm going to sway towards Aljamain because, yes, Brian Ortega's striking has improved, but Aljamain, I still would consider to be a better striker. And for that reason, even though if this fight were to go on the ground, like I said, it would be competitive. It would be back and forth. Aljamain would have some good positioning. I think Ortega would have some good positioning. It would just be hard to judge if it was a full grappling match. If it was just a fucking grappling match for every single minute of every single round in that fight, it would be hard to judge. But on the feet, I think Aljamain has the tools necessary to be one step ahead of Brian Ortega, despite the improvements Brian Ortega has made, and I'm sure he'll make more on the feet. But Aljamain, his awkward striking, I think it's enough to connect at a really good pace on Brian Ortega. It's enough for Aljamain to have really good output on the feet and give him the edge. If this fight were to go to a decision, I don't think Aljamain will knock Brian Ortega out. There's a chance he could, but if I had to give you guys a direct prediction, I'd say this fight goes to the ground. Maybe a quarter of the time. I think a quarter of the fight will be spent on the ground, in which, like I said, it'll be hard to judge. It'll be back and forth. Takedowns, I think Aljamain will likely have like one takedown over Brian Ortega. But on the feet, I think he'll have better output. On the feet, I think Aljamain will have better output than Ortega. And that'll give him the fight. I think this fight goes to a decision, and it leans the way of Aljamain, probably unanimously. So, overall prediction, unanimous decision in favor of Aljamain Sterling, via just striking output. I think the grappling will be relatively even, especially considering ground control time. Takedowns, I think Aljamain will have maybe just one over Ortega. But like I said, the winner will be decided on the feet, and the winner will be Aljamain Sterling. Let me know what you think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. But most importantly, subscribe. I love you guys, and I'll see you all in the next.